Find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
Hey, what's up, you guys? I'm Catherine.
And I'm Haley.
And we are Saturdays Are for the Ghouls,
A podcast on the Podmoth Network.
We cover all things spooky, like horror movies, true crime, the supernatural, and spooky stories.
In the most chaotic way possible.
So join your favorite ghoul friends every Saturday wherever you listen to podcasts.
And become a spooky babe.
So spooky babes, we'll see you
in your nightmares.
Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy.
And I'm Diva.
And this is Twisted Listeners, a podcast about murder
and lists.
And we're brought to you by the Podmoth Podcasting Network. Check out all the other shows. We got some new ones on there that are like not true crimey. So if you're looking for something a little different, you can check them out.
Yeah.
And we are doing, what are we doing? We're doing vampires. We're doing
vampires, the sequel, a couple days delay, and all of a sudden our brains are like turned around. Yeah.
It's mush, dude. I'm so fucking busy with work. It's been fucking insane. Although we did do a little Twisted Listers group outing last night.
Mm-hmm.
We went and saw Terrifier 2.
Yes, on my urging, which is my husband's favorite horror franchise.
Yeah, it's really good. But Diva, I have to say, I was surprised to see you turn away from the screen a couple times.
I did.
I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't. Which I think
I was weak.
I think we were both equally surprised at the reactions of the other, because I'm the type of person when I watch a scary movie, I will like scream and shout and like hit who's next to me and like pull my feet up off the floor and like.
But you don't turn away.
I don't. And it has to be like scary. Gory doesn't bother me. Gory,
but there's
I'm like,
few things. There's just a few types of things like eyeballs and like after like a couple face smashing ends, I'm like, oh man, like sometimes it's just a reflex, you know. Like I spare myself a little bit.
There was a point where they were pulling the insides out of a dead opossum.
That's what I couldn't look.
That one, whatever they made the guts out of, it reminded me of like a bean and cheese burrito, and so that got me because I was like, that kind of looks like food
because it was an animal. Even though the animal was dead, they weren't actively killing it, but like I still couldn't look at it because I felt bad for the possum. Like that, I felt more upset about that than I did all the people on people. Violence.
Yeah. No, agreed. It was just it was a weird thing, I gotta say. Anyway, it was a good movie, you guys. It was fucking hilarious, actually. You guys should go watch it if you have strong stomachs. Yeah, Art the Clown.
I stan Art the Clown.
Yeah. But anyway, we're here for part 2 of Vampires Take 2 because we've done this topic before. So this is a good Halloween-y topic. Yes. And just a quick note, I've been listening to some podcasts that I used to really like that I don't like so much anymore. And I'm just going to tell you guys that we will never have an intro longer than 5 minutes. And anytime we do, I cut it out because
of like us chatting, you mean?
Yeah, because like even if we get chatty, like nobody wants to hear that shit. So real quick, if you'd like to join us on Patreon, you can do that at patreon.com/twistedlisters. If you'd like to join us on TikTok, it's just at Twisted Listers. If you'd like to join us on Instagram, which is where we're most active, you can join us at
what? Oh, sorry. Start that again. Oh my god.
All right. Just join us on Instagram at
Twisted Listers PCast.
If you'd like to check out our website, you can do that at
twistedlisterspod.com.
And if you'd like to send us an email with case suggestions or just to say hello, you can do that at
twistedlisterspod@gmail.com.
And I think that's it. So let's get into it.
Yeah. Do I go first?
I can't remember.
I don't remember. Yeah. Yes.
Who picked
I think
this?
I concluded with Bathory last time, right? I picked this.
Yeah. So you go first. Okay, we got it. Our lives are together, you guys.
Whew. All right.
All right. Here we go.
Okay. All right. So mine's a little shorter, but it is very strange and stupid. This is a story of a French guy named Nico Claux.
I was looking at this one.
Claux, French. This all happened or began, I guess, in 1994 in Paris. We're going to Paris.
Woohoo.
I was just in Paris in a taxi cab. I didn't do anything. I was just there in transit, but it was cool to see it from the taxi. It was awesome.
Yeah, Paris is a beautiful city.
It is cool. So a tiny bit about Nico's background. His grandfather died when he was 10 years old, and they had reportedly been arguing at the time. So he blamed himself for his grandfather's death. But like, I don't know. This is all kind of like, most of what I'm going to say comes from Nico's mouth. So take everything with a grain of salt.
Okay, gotcha.
So he would later cite this as how he became kind of obsessed with death. He, as a very like young kid / teen, he would got really into going to graveyards, and he just went like full Ed Gein to start with. He claimed he would steal bodies from graves and kind of make home decor out of bones, you know, Ed Gein-y type stuff.
From the time he was little?
He claims.
Okay.
He claims, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Okay. All right, whatever.
Yeah, or at like I think maybe teen years, perhaps.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Because he's not that old when all this happens. He's like 20 or something. Tops. So Nico worked at a mortuary, and he claims that while serving as a morgue attendant, he started to cut chunks out of the dead bodies and eat them.
Oh, wow. Just like
Strips
that.
of meat. Yep.
So he's just that's where he goes grocery shopping.
Yeah, exactly. So here's a quote from Nico about his experiences eating chunks of dead corpse meat. Quote, I brought select meats home with me to be cooked, but my preference was to eat them raw. It tasted like tartare steak or carpaccio. The big muscles of the thighs and back were good, but there was no good meat in the breasts, only fats. People often ask me what went through my mind the first time I indulged my cannibalistic fantasy. Well, to be honest, I said to myself, quote, wow, now I'm a cannibal. Cool.
Wow. So on top of being a cannibal, he's also very intelligent and super deep. Like a very analytical man. Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm a cannibal.
Yeah.
Like
when
what?
I started to be a cannibal, I thought to myself, I'm a cannibal. Like, that's so fucking profound.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, not
This
to
is
like
level
praise
shit.
Dahmer, but Dahmer was more like, now they're a part of me forever. He did that bit, right?
Yeah, at least
This
he had some weird fucked up like
philosophy
yeah,
behind
exactly.
it. This guy's just like, I'm a cannibal now.
cool. I'm sorry, that's so funny. The fuck. All right. All right.
Yeah. Okay. So
Okay.
he also took bags of blood from the hospital, I guess, where his work was attached to, and he would add
something to wash it down with, right?
Yeah, exactly. Beverage.
Ugh.
And he's not going grocery shopping at all. Like this is just
Yeah,
what he's
this
eating.
is just where he goes.
And he
Jesus.
would add protein powder to the blood and make blood protein shakes.
Why does that make it so much worse?
Because it's like chunky, like thick.
Oh my
grainy.
god.
Yeah. So that's what Nico's doing. On October 4th, 1994, Nico meets Thierry Bessonnier. That was my best attempt there.
You did it. That sounds good.
Oof, yeah.
Sounds good.
I'm very bad at saying French words. It's my language Achilles heel. Okay. So Thierry, he meets him on Minitel, which is at the time a very early version of like Grindr, but for kind of like a social media / dating thing for gay men.
Okay.
But it's very early in the social media lands. It's the 90s. Yeah.
Right.
So he goes for a date to Terry's apartment, and not long into the date, pretty quickly, he shoots him 4 times in the head.
Whoa. So okay, so he's just like leveling up here.
Yeah.
Like he wants fresher meat.
Yes.
Ugh.
Well, yeah. Okay. So he doesn't actually eat him, though, I don't think. He instead sits there as he bleeds out. He didn't die instantly. He sat there, and he claims that he sat and ate cookies and watched him die.
That's just
and
weird.
He says that he did it because he wanted to watch someone die. That's it.
So this is almost like a separate thing in a way.
Yeah, separate mission for him, I guess.
I mean, like obviously connected, but not as much as I thought it was.
It's also just as boring robbery as well, because in addition to the cookies, cookie moment here, he also ransacked the apartment and he took various personal items, some of which are kind of souvenirs, and then also took his credit cards and checks. So it's also just a robbery.
Okay.
He fell under suspicion for the murder after he bought a VCR with a stolen check.
Oh.
So brilliant. Also.
Okay.
Also, what's more 90s than buying a VCR with a check?
Yeah.
So stupid.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So this leads police to track him down, and they arrest him outside of the Moulin Rouge, which I was like, wow, that's so specific and Parisian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, okay.
I tried to go there, but it was so fucking expensive that
so expensive.
it's so fucking expensive.
It used to be where poor people drink absinthe and
I know.
It used to be for
but
poor
now
people.
thanks fucking Boz Lerman, you shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that was his fault. Yeah.
It was. Anyway.
Okay. So he was Nico Claux was tried in 1987 for the murder. And even though he confessed, he would plead not guilty with, quote, diminished responsibility due to a diagnosis he acquired at some point of borderline personality disorder.
Oh, okay.
He is found guilty, and I don't think the diminished responsibility thing works because he gets 12 years in prison.
Yeah.
For the French version of first-degree murder and armed robbery and a slew of other charges. And 12 years is like a pretty heavy sentence for France, for Europe.
Yeah, that's feel like pretty harsh,
that's
honestly.
Pretty legit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not America. So in prison, he corresponds with serial killers Patrick Kearney, the trash bag murderer.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And Doug Clark, the Sunset Strip killer. And he really gets into being like a serial killer super fan. He also starts doing paintings of serial killers that he sells.
Okay.
They're very bad. He ultimately serves 7.5 years of his sentence, and he gets out in 2002.
Okay.
Since then, Nico has loved talking about the murder and his cannibalistic past. He also claims he did necrophilia and had raped the bodies. Some people doubt the veracity of his claims of cannibalism because, again, we don't have a ton of evidence besides his word. We just know he did that one murder, right?
Right.
And also suspicious if he's such a diehard cannibal, why didn't he eat any of that body, right?
Yeah, that's super weird, honestly.
Like, if that's your thing. But again, he also really may have, because this guy fucking sucks. So let's not like completely doubt it, because he definitely could have been rocking those blood milkshakes.
Oh god, that's so gnarly.
And he did work at a morgue, so it could have happened.
Okay.
He is now presently very much present in the world, in the internet, and he's super douchey and annoying. So I just have to make fun of him. He goes by
like he's online and shit.
Oh yeah, everywhere, 1,000 places. He goes by Nicolas Castellau in some places, and Nico Claux. He lives in Paris. He thinks he's a super great painter. His paintings suck. He has also written a book called The Cannibal Cookbook.
Oh.
That claims to be like
they've like
recipes.
published it?
No, it's very self-published.
Oh, okay. Like, can you get it on Amazon? Like, what's the deal here?
I mean, maybe, but it is very self-published. You can put any book out you want, really.
Right.
But it claims to be recipes for people, meat, right?
Recipes for people.
for people cooking. People.
Yeah, for cooking. People.
His other titles include The Black Bible of the Devil. He also wrote a book in French about mayhem and boredom, because of course he loves those guys. I just covered them on Satanic Murders, or was that it? Or what was it?
I forget what it was, but
what the topic was when I covered that.
That guy's a fucking asshole.
Varg Vikernes specifically.
Yes,
suck.
Fuck that guy.
He's also very present and around, and he also sucks.
Yeah, they're the worst. We should go troll them.
I would love to. So I'm trying to do it right now a little bit. So Nico Claux also has a website, which I won't even list the name of or URL, because you can find it if you really want, but don't give this guy any attention or hits. I had to for research, so I'll tell you about it. Okay. He sells on his website serial killer collectibles, quote, murderabilia, and adult products, because he also, in addition to the Cannibal Cookbook, sells serial killer themed dildos.
What the fuck?
Which that's a product you now know exists.
Yeah, I wish I didn't. Like, I don't even don't even explain to me. Actually, I kind of want to know how that works. Like, how exactly does that work? Like, how do you like?
Look, it's pretty lazy. One of them's just like a bone shape.
Oh,
which is lame. And the other one's like a crucifix shape.
Oh, that's stupid.
It's not that creative.
Yeah, that's dumb.
like it's not like a 3D sculpture of a whole ass serial killer or something. No, it's
Thank
not
God.
that crazy. No,
Okay.
it's not that great. He also has a serial killer pinups coloring book that he created. On January 28th, 2022, he did a tweet trying to promote this naked serial killer coloring book where it says, quote, "Ever dreamt of seeing crime celebrities naked? Say no more."
Oh, he calls them crime celebrities?
Yeah, and
Oh, that's a
also,
fucking
like,
thing.
here's a cool thing. I have never wanted to see these people naked. And it's, like, extremely stupid because it's, like, the least sexy people, like, the least sexy serial killers, and he's, like, basically doing drawings that paste their head on top of, like, fake sexy naked bodies.
That's so gross. Like,
It's
who
so
the
dumb
fuck?
and gross.
Okay, like Ted Bundy, just because, I mean, that would be the first place I go because people think he's hot, which is disgusting. Like, I don't know.
No, it's really gross people,
Like,
too.
how
It's
about
not
Big
just
Ed? Sorry.
It's not just like the ones you think of as attractive. It's like really gross ones. I need to find an example.
No, you don't.
It's not like even ones that are like traditionally hot, quote unquote, which they're not. But
right.
You got it. Don't check it out. But yeah, these are the kinds of things he sells. It's very fucking lame. Also, a lot of it just looks extremely poor quality and it's extremely marked up in price. Like one of the things he has on his store is like these guillotine earrings, which I'm positive are like mass produced in China. I've seen them on Etsy and he has them for $250.
Oh, fuck off.
They're like little plastic things, probably. Yeah. So
fucking idiot.
Anyway, that's my short little tale about Nico Claux. He sucks. Don't give him any money or attention. And even if you are someone who likes murderabilia, which don't be that person, do not buy it from him.
Like those earrings are fine. Like that's not directly related to like murder. Like those are cute. You know, it's a cute little like Halloweeny kind of thing.
But don't get
it from him. Yeah, and also like don't go as far as like specific serial killers. Like that kind of shit's too much. Too much. Anyway.
Too much. Yeah.
Well, there it is. Well, thank you. All right. I'm going to do Allan Menzies, and I'm telling you right now that I chose him because his last name sounds like Menzies, and I'm fucking 12. So I was like, what a cool name.
Nice.
And then I had I read about him. Actually, I did watch like a little bit of a YouTube, which was hilarious. And I realized this is kind of a cool story. So let's talk about him. This is Allan Menzies. He grew up in West Lothian, Scotland. He's a little bit older than me, he would have been. Spoiler alert. He grew up getting bullied endlessly. He had no friends. He wasn't good with other. Actually, he's younger than me. I take that back. He's like 10 years younger than me. Apologies again. Okay. So anyway, he grew up getting bullied. He had no friends. He wasn't good with other people. He was just one of those kind of kids. And his parents were like cool as far as I can tell. Like he didn't have like a bad childhood. He didn't have like a great childhood. He just had a childhood like anybody else, you know? So it wasn't like, oh, his dad beat him or his mom was this or that. Like it was just he grew up normal. But he was really in his own head. He was really given into fantasy worlds. Like he didn't spend a lot of time talking to other people. He spent a lot more time, you know, just watching movies and just hanging out by himself. So he gets really into movies and video games and, you know, kind of like kids do. And then he gets into more like violent movies and video games. So he's one of those kids that like goes to school and comes home and just like gets on the computer, gets on the video games, starts watching TV. And from there, he gets really into serial killers. So he goes from like violent video games to serial killers. And then he takes what I like to call now, I've dubbed this the serial killer step, where he himself becomes a serial killer and he gets really into Nazis. So I feel like because like you can be into violent video games, you can be into serial killers in that you're interested in them. Obviously, hi, we're here. But I feel like when you take that third step, like that's the new triad. It's like,
Nazis is absolutely always the step too far.
It really is every time.
Yeah.
So, you know, he's going down this really bad path. But what I think it is because he was bullied in school, because he didn't have any friends, because he felt like he didn't have any control over his own life or his social life. He wanted power and control. And so he saw that in like Nazis. He saw that in these like dictators, you know, like he sees them almost as role models for how to like get back at people who've wronged you and take control of your life. Right. Anyway, so the bullying at school continues, and in junior high, he becomes suicidal. But I also think, and I never say things like this, but I'll explain why, because I don't want to get like yelled at. I think it was as much a cry for attention as anything.
Yeah.
Because he brought a noose to school,
Oh.
showed it to another kid, told him he was going to kill himself, and then didn't do anything with it. So it was just one of those things,
Yeah.
like, trying to get.
He definitely wants attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, it's an immature kind of way of crying for help. And it's really unfortunate that that's the case,
Yeah.
But anyway, so from there, after that, he's like, you know what? I'm fucking pissed. Like, I'm tired of being the victim. I want to get revenge. And I think a lot of this comes from like reading about serial killers and like, instead of being like, oh, that's fucked up, being like, oh, that's how I want to be,
Yeah.
So this next part kind of depends on where you get your information. According to Copycat Killers, that TV show, which I watched a little snippet, they say here that Allan was kind of the victim getting picked on by this kid. But then according to the actual victim in the part of the story, Allan was the bully. So it kind of depends, the person who ends up being victimized is like Allan was a school bully, but then this show was like Allan was constantly picked on and was not the bully. So I think that Allan probably was getting picked on and just fought back, but you can decide for yourself.
Yeah.
So one day at school, and this is in high school, Allan and this other student, Brian Fell, got into it in the hallway between classes. It's not the first time that they've gotten into an argument, but this day was a little bit different because on this day, Allan pulled out a 9-inch hunting knife and plunged it into Brian's side.
Oh my God.
Then pulled it out and attempted to stab Brian in the chest. Brian put his hand up in self-defense and ended up with a very large gash in his arm, but saved himself from getting probably murdered by getting stabbed in the chest. So at least there's that. So that's pretty fucking intense. We are not yet to the vampirism, FYI. This is just another thing that happened. Oof. So Allan is arrested and ends up in a young offenders institute for 3 years, and he gets out when he's either 18 or 19.
Okay.
Now, as to where Allan got the hunting knife, it was one that he used when he would go hunting with his dad. So he and his dad were super into this shit. So there's another like red flag. Video games, violent movies, no friends, really into Nazis, really into serial killers, and really into hunting. And according to Brian, again, who's the victim, Allan not only was super into hunting, but he was really into like skinning animals, just like hurting animals, and then like telling everybody about it. Yeah. And in fact, Brian ended up spending multiple days in the hospital after the attack, not just because of the stab wound, but because he had to be on heavy antibiotics as the knife he was stabbed with had been used to skin a bunch of animals and then had not been washed.
Ew, 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 ew.
Yes, it's really fucking gross. After Allan was released 3 years later, he went back to living at home with his mom and dad and kind of started this whole weird fantasy life all over again.
Okay.
He did have one friend, a guy named Thomas. I believe they'd been friends since high school, so they're about the same age. And they spent a lot of time together as neither really had any other friends. Allan was at one point working, I think, as a security guard, but he'd lost his job. So mostly just hung out at home playing video games and watching TV, same old, right? He and Thomas would like get together to watch video games or watch movies and play video games. And both were like peripherally into goth stuff. So like they both kind of liked, metal music, and they were both kind of like, they didn't look like goth kids, but I think they were just kind of
quietly goth.
Yeah, like weirdly, like not super outwardly goth. At this point, they're about 22 years old, 20 or 22. And this is in 2002. So yeah, they are my age. I don't know why I can't do fucking math. I'm like, this happened in 2002. They're 10 years younger than me. No, they're not. They're like 2 years older than me. Anyway, so one night in the summer of 2002, Thomas comes over and he brings a movie with him. The movie he brings with him is The Queen of the Damned, starring all around amazing badass Aaliyah. Rest in peace. You beautiful, beautiful.
Great
woman.
movie. Great campy vampire.
Really, yeah.
Early 2000s. New metal.
Yes, exactly. All the things that I think these guys are into, it like embodies that, right?
Yeah. They probably also love Underworld.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, Thomas brings this over. This is a movie based on a story by Anne Rice. If you don't know who she is, yes, you do, because you're listening to our podcast. But basically,
course
She
they
did
do.
all the vampire chronicles. So Interview with the Vampire, Vampire Lestat, Queen of the Damned. There's a gajillion more. I actually read most of them when I was pretty young. The Vampire Lestat gets really whiny and long-winded, and I couldn't finish it. But like Queen of the Damned, I finished, and obviously Interview with the Vampire.
It's all sexy vampire stuff.
It is. And when you cast Brad Pitt as a sexy vampire, you're just winning at life.
Yeah.
So I got really into these for a while. So in this movie, Lestat goes to bed. He goes to sleep for like 200 years, wakes back up, and he's in like modern day. He decides he wants to become a rock star, and why not? Because he's a vampire, he can do what he wants. And his amazing rock and roll music like awakens the Queen of the Damned, Akasha.
Yeah.
And she can control like anybody. She can control vampires, humans, whatever. So that's kind of the basis of this story. So they watch this movie, and Allan becomes straight up obsessed. Like, cannot get enough of this movie. He becomes completely enamored by Aaliyah, and more so by her character, Akasha or Acacia. I think it's Akasha. And what's really sad is that Aaliyah had actually died 6 months before this movie came out.
Yes.
So by the time these guys are watching it on home video, she's already been dead for a while.
It was like how the Heath Ledger died before the Dark Knight came out. Yeah, like that thing.
Yeah, so it's really fucking sad. The movie did not do very well, but like Aaliyah got a lot of praise for her acting.
Yeah.
So I think like Aaliyah's being dead sort of played into his fantasy because he could like talk to her in his head. And he becomes like so obsessed with this movie. He watches it hundreds of times. All he basically does is watch this movie. Like when he's not doing he's not like at the grocery store or fucking eating dinner with his parents.
Yeah.
He's watching this fucking movie. That's like all he's doing.
Okay.
And it's like next level fucking over the top, right? He starts, thinking that Akasha is talking to him. She's telling him like he has to become a vampire. She wants him to come live with him. I mean, it's like really over the top, like fantasy shit in his head.
Okay.
So this is, been going on for about 6 months. And on December 11th, 2002, Thomas comes over again. They've been hanging out, and Thomas is used to Allan just wanting to watch the movie. And Allan again puts the movie on. It's nighttime. Thomas is over. They're going to hang out. And this time, Thomas just loses it. He's like, dude, this movie is not that good. Like, I know I showed this movie to you, but it's like, let's watch it and then move the fuck on with our lives. Like, what is wrong with you? Aaliyah's not even a good actress. Like, this movie is fucking cheesy. Like,
I was going to say also that like most of this, except for the delusions in his head, otherwise sounds like me with Lord of the Rings in high school, because this is exactly how I was.
Yeah, like I'm just going to watch it on repeat all the time. I've done that with movies. Like I've got deeply into something where like all I want to do is like spend time in that world. So I totally understand it.
Yeah.
It's happened to me with books more than movies, but definitely with both. But it's getting to the point of like real unhealthy obsession. Yeah. And so Thomas, like I said, I think both these guys are kind of like, I don't want to talk shit, but like I get the feeling of like incel from both of them a little bit, just kind of, based on the way that they interact. So they're talking shit. And Thomas is talking shit to Allan, being like, this movie sucks. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And then disparaging Aaliyah directly, Allan gets pissed and he's like, get the fuck out of my house. So Thomas is like, are you seriously like kicking me out? Allan's like, yeah, get the fuck out of here. I have to defend Akasha's honor. You've insulted her. Like, get out. He tells Thomas to leave. And then the next day, Thomas is nowhere to be found. Thomas doesn't come home. And then it's been about a week and nobody's seen Thomas. Finally, Thomas's parents call the police and they report him missing. They tell police that he was last seen at Allan's house. And again, Thomas didn't really have any friends. So Allan's really the only person they would be talking to anyway. So they go to Allan's house and he seems totally normal. He's like, nope, sorry, we got in an argument. He even tells them, like, we got in an argument. I asked him to leave and he left. So he downplays the argument because, it's a fucking vampire. It's over a vampire movie, right? Like, what the fuck? So the cops are like, okay, cool, thanks so much. But pretty quickly after the police leave, Allan's parents notice his demeanor changes. He's more moody. He doesn't want them coming into his room. He's like a teenager all over again. And at one point, Allan's dad comes into his room and he sees a couple drops of blood on the floor. And Allan's like, it's my own blood. I cut myself. Like, leave me alone. Okay. And his dad's like, okay, you're a fucking weirdo. Like, you very well could have just done this to yourself or whatever, right? So a few days later, Allan sees Thomas's mom. So like Allan is no longer a suspect. Like maybe something happened after Thomas left. He left at night, whatever. But he sees Thomas's mom at the grocery store and he says something really fucking weird to her. He looks at her and he walks up to her with a bottle of bleach in his hands. And he says, "Do you think this would remove bloodstains from my carpet?" And Thomas's mom is like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like, my kid was last seen with you, and this is what you're saying?" So she immediately goes to the police, and they're like, "Oh, thanks so much for doing our job for us. We'll look into it." And they go back and they interview Allan again. And remember, Allan has already stabbed another kid in elementary school, and this is like something the police could easily have known. So it's kind of like the fact that this had to happen for them to even look into him is a little crazy to me. So they question him again, and again, he has nothing to say. But this time, police notice that his demeanor is very different. So they're like, okay, he said the same thing. We got in an argument. I asked him to leave. That's it. But they search the property around his house. They're like, fuck this. We're not going to trust this kid. We're going to search the area. And they find a shirt and a pair of pants completely covered in blood. They take it and they test it for blood, and it belongs to Thomas. Shockingly. So they have Thomas's bloody clothing on Allan's property, and now it's a homicide case. And not only is it a homicide case, but now, of course, they're zeroing in on Allan. So the day after the second interview, Allan overdoses and ends up in the hospital. So a suicide attempt directly after a police interview is a pretty strong sign. But again, he denies it. From his bed. He's like, "It was an accident. I just like using drugs. I used too many." So police keep looking because, without a body, there's often no case. So they continue to search. They've got the bloody clothes. They know it's him, but they can't figure it out. 5 weeks after Thomas went missing, police find his body very near Allan's house.
Okay.
Not on the property, but very, very near. Thomas had been stabbed over 40 times and had also had his head bashed in. Yeah, so real brutal.
Yeah.
Allan is brought in again, and this time he finally fucking cracks. One sec.
Oh my gosh.
So sick of this. It's like getting worse, I think.
It must be a helicopter because it's circling around.
Yeah. But I only have about a half a page left, thank fucking God. So
okay.
And what he tells them is the truth? ? Because you have to remember that this guy is like solidly living in a fantasy world. And of course, his truth is centered around like the Queen of the Damned, Akasha, and his desire to become a vampire. So he tells police that he knew he had to kill someone to become a vampire because Akasha told him to. He tells them that Akasha had come to him in his dreams and said she'd make him a vampire. So he was already kind of on track to kill someone, but I don't think he intended it to be his only friend. But according to Allan, he snapped when Thomas, talked shit on the movie. And so
my God.
It became like the perfect setup for him because he already wanted to kill somebody.
To defend Aaliyah's honor.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we've got these two things going on. He wants to kill someone to be a vampire, and then he's pissed off at his friends. So there you go. And as in the past, he acted on his violent impulse. So he said what happened was he got really angry and he grabbed one of his hunting knives. It was a Bowie knife this time. He stabbed Thomas in the face, head, and shoulders.
Ugh.
But shockingly, none of these stabs are fatal. So Thomas runs upstairs because, of course, they were in the basement. And he runs into Allan's room. Allan gives chase and catches Thomas in his room, corners him, grabs a hammer, and bashes his fucking head in.
Jesus.
He later said that while he was doing this, he heard Aaliyah's voice in his head telling him to kill Thomas so he could become a vampire.
Oh, my dude, that was not Aaliyah. No, that was not the R&B singer we all love and adore.
Yeah, no. I was wearing a shirt with her on it the other day, and I was like, oh, that's funny. I'm
awesome.
researching this. Yeah, it's so sad. That's so fucking sad. So after Thomas was dead, he said the Queen was happy with him. And then he proceeded to not only drink Thomas's blood, but also eat a chunk of his skull.
Okay, wait a minute.
Skull.
Not brain, not flesh.
One place I read that it was his brain. 4
Okay.
places I read that it was his actual skull.
That is not that edible. Bones aren't edible. Did
You're
he
not
cook
supposed to eat
it?
that. I don't know. I hope it fucking cut him when he pooped it out, though.
That that is
Sorry.
very. I mean, it
But
must have
honestly.
been super small, and he swallowed it.
Yeah, it must have been. Yeah.
Because you can't like eat a big chunk of bone.
No.
You can't.
But maybe it was his brain. I don't know. Because
Okay.
yeah, eating a bone seems really over the top.
It's really
to me.
hard.
Yeah.
I mean,
He
you
then-
can put anything in your mouth. There's a guy on My Strange Addiction, my favorite show from back in the
Yeah.
day, who would just eat glass. Like you just put glasses in his mouth and just break it.
That's insane. How did
So-
he not die?
He was doing it. I don't
So
know.
Fucking easy to kill you. It's like if you eat
Yeah.
a magnet, like you're fucking done, man. That shit'll
Oh
tear
yeah,
your
there's
insides up.
people drinking gasoline. There's people doing all kinds of stuff.
That is so insane. Just take some iron. You guys are just lacking iron. If you're like drinking
No, they have
gasoline
that-
and eating dirt, like you need iron.
There is a disease, I forget what it's called, where you crave eating like inanimate objects. Though that is like a thing.
That's so weird. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's a real
fucked up.
thing. Yeah.
Well, this guy ate a piece of his friend's bone
Ugh.
of his skull, which is so
Yeah.
fucked. He then buried Thomas in that shallow grave not far from his house. He stripped him naked and like dumped the clothing elsewhere, which I find to be really interesting that he did that. Like, were you trying to not get caught? You know, and I think that came into play later in the in his trial, because he went to trial and he attempted to say that he was, you know, insane, it was diminished, you know, capacity or whatever. But if you then bury the body, if you then bury the clothing separate from the body, you're taking steps to not get caught. So when you do something like that, you have to have the presence of mind to do something
Yeah.
like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's not just something that you do when you're in like some weird episode where you're not thinking straight. So he goes to trial and he gets convicted, and it's in Scotland, so I don't even know that they have like life without release, you know, like I think you have to have like a non-parole period, but eventually you'll get out. But so he went to prison in 2003. That same year, just months after he was, you know, incarcerated, they found him
Yeah.
dead in his cell.
Uh,
And I believe that he had strangled himself,
okay.
and he was on suicide watch, and they just did not watch him. So
Not watched enough, I
no,
guess.
definitely not watched. So Allan Menzies did not become a vampire as he thought he would. But you know, I also wonder if that's actually true, because I don't think he was obsessed to the point where he didn't know that he was making it up. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he had
Yeah.
a break with reality, really. I think that he was using that as an excuse because he's
Yeah.
a violent person.
It was like
Because
kind of
when-
how we talked about for like the devil made me do it things. It was like for cases, it was mostly people using that as like a bullshit.
Yeah, like this guy
excuse,
already
yeah.
attempted to kill somebody in high school. You know, it's not,
Yeah.
it's like 6 years later he finally succeeds in doing it, but it's not because he was out of his mind. It's because he's a fucked up person, you know?
Yeah.
But the blood drinking and the skull eating, like that to me does lend credibility to the idea that he thinks that he's going to become a vampire. But I don't know. I think it's kind of bullshit. But you know,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously something's going on if he killed himself. You know, he's not
Right.
a
No. I mean,
totally
he
sound
could have
mind.
had multiple reasons to kill him, and then like, you know, his vampire super fandom just got out of hand with
Yeah,
the blood drinking.
yeah.
And,
But yeah, he drank blood. He ate skull. He possibly ate brain. Real fucked up. I don't think
Wow.
Aaliyah would want her name attached to that. So
no.
So there it
Aaliyah's the
is.
best.
yeah, no. So there it is. Those are our 2 for today.
Yeah, vampires.
Yes. I feel like we've had a really hard time recording lately because of all the like distractions and weird shit going on. So hopefully they're still entertaining you guys. I
Yeah.
apologize if they're a little disjointed. Anyway, what are we doing next week? Is it my choice?
It is.
I think I want to do the one that you mentioned. I realized that we're releasing one on Halloween, so we could continue with the Halloween themes, but I feel like we did a really good job covering a lot of Halloween themes. So I think
Mhm.
I'd like to do witnesses who've been murdered before they could testify. I
Oh,
think that's
okay.
a really interesting topic. It could be really frustrating, I think, in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Because I guarantee there's like rich dudes who have like killed people before they could testify and then they got off. And so we could
Victims who knew too much.
Yes, the man who knew too much.
It's a
That's
little
good-
spooky.
It could be spooky. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
an Alfred Hitchcock movie, The Man Who Knew Too Much.
Mhm.
That's a fucking creepy ass movie. Okay, so we may not do anything that riveting, but it'll be along those lines. So that's what
Yeah.
I'd like to do.
Okay. Sounds good.
Sweet. Okay, well, I guess that's all for today, guys. So thanks for tuning in. Hopefully our vampire stories scared you and excited
Yeah.
you. Everybody have a fucking amazing Halloween. Go see
Yes.
Terrifier 2. And until next week,
Stay
off our
there.
Bye.